So, good morning, everyone. I think before we can talk about how you can get involved with being a board member or various nonprofits, we actually need to discuss what your duty would be if you were involved, because I feel like a lot of people go into board service and they don't really know what's expected of them. So I think it's real important to understand up front that when you become a member of a board of directors, it's not just about showing up for a monthly or a quarterly meeting like some people think. It's not about building your resume. There are some duties that go along with it, and sometimes those duties are very frightening. I know as a person who has signed checks from various organizations, I get a little nervous sometimes signing those checks, and I ask a lot of questions. So you just have to realize up front that you do have certain duties. Attending meetings are, of course, one of the main duties, because you cannot perform your duties as a board member if you don't attend the meeting. But what some people don't realize is you as a board member help to shape the purpose of the organization, the mission of the organization, the vision of the organization. You hire the executive director, you evaluate the executive director, you have to evaluate yourself as a board member, you evaluate the board as a whole. You have fiduciary responsibilities, which is just a fancy word for you are responsible for how the money is spent. And that is something I want to make sure everyone has a very, very good understanding of, because I myself have been a member of a board of directors where the board, maybe we got a hard slap on the hand because some monies were not spent appropriately. And as a board member, we were looking at having to pay that money back. And this was long before I was in Etowah County, so it's not anything that's happened here. I do want to say that up front. But it is something that you take very seriously, because I honestly thought I was going to have to write a check, as well as the other 28 board members. We all thought we were going to have to write a $1,000 check to make up for a $30,000 that had been misappropriated. So understanding that you do have a financial responsibility as a board member. So when you go to board meetings, and when they spend that first 10 or 15 minutes going over finances, it's very important that you pay attention. And I can't stress that one enough. If that doesn't scare you off, and you're still interested in being on different boards, you also need to realize that other resources have to be managed effectively too, and you're responsible for making sure that the executive director is doing that. As a board of director, you are part of that organization's public image. So think about that, and think about your social life as you think about what boards you want to go on to. You may also find yourself as the appeals court for a disgruntled employee who is having a problem with the executive director. So just make sure that you can perform these duties before you jump in with both feet and join a board of directors. So I hope that doesn't scare you, but I did want to touch on that and let you know up front that you need to take board membership very, very seriously. Having said that, I think we need to talk about why you would want to be on a board. So someone throw a reason to me as to why they would want to be on a board of directors.
They want to help.
What was that?
They want to help.
They want to help, okay. Make a difference. Any other reason?
They're passionate about change their purpose or change their mission. That was not about service.
Passion. That's a good one. What else? What about a way to meet people? A way to meet peers, people that you have a common interest with? What about a way just to improve your community? All of these are great reasons to join a board, but I think unless you join something that you are extremely passionate about, you'll find that this is just another thing you have to put a checkbox that you've accomplished. So passion is where I want to spend the next few minutes and talk about what are you passionate about. Are you passionate about animals? Are you passionate about people? If you're passionate about people, are you passionate about young people, old people, single mothers, single fathers, people who've been to prison that are getting back into the community? Are you maybe disabled veterans? Are you passionate about teaching? Are you passionate about learning? Are you passionate about literacy? Are you passionate about, it could even be something to do with religion. What are your passions? Anybody want to share some passions with me?
I like animals.
You like animals? Okay.
At-risk students,
At-risk students? That's my love.
underserved, underrepresented children,
Underserved, underrepresented children,
Special needs population.
special needs population,
the elderly,
elderly. What about anyone passionate about health, mental health? It goes on and on. Maybe you're passionate about just connecting people from one person to another. Maybe you're passionate about small businesses. Maybe you're passionate about making sure money is spent appropriately. Maybe you're passionate about, what about abused women?
suicide prevention.
Suicide prevention, that one's huge right now. See, and that's a good thing. So it's either something that you're extremely passionate about because it's touched you, it's close to home to you, or it's something that annoys you to no end and you want to do something about it. For me, that would be homelessness. I see homelessness, and I'm not talking about houselessness, and I'm not talking about panhandling. I am talking about true homelessness. I see it on a daily basis, and it annoys me to no end, and I don't understand it. And so, having said that, I realize I have to get involved with a nonprofit that helps with our problem of homelessness because it annoys me. Maybe it touches your hot button. Maybe it's something that just, you see it on a daily basis. And that's why some people jump into being a board servant or being on a board of directors or even being an advisory board, because it's something that annoys you to no end. What is something that annoys y'all? Let's talk about that. Have you ever thought of it from that perspective?
Yes. Hunger in elderly and senior citizens annoys me.
That's a good one. Hunger in elderly and senior citizens. That's a good one that should annoy you. Anybody else have anything that annoys them?
Entitlement.
Entitlement. That's a great one. That's one we hear a lot about right now.
Mental health needs, families, all the way from children to parents, the whole family.
So the lack of access to mental health for little guys all the way through the elderly. And that's huge right now. You hear a lot about that. I know the sheriff's office has been talking about a mental health officer in Calhoun County. There's a mental health officer that's actually a sheriff and a deputy sheriff. And so that's huge. That's a huge one that people are very passionate about. What else?
Domestic violence.
Domestic violence. So what I'm trying to get you to do is just to think through what your passions are and why you're passionate about them. I think I've told you, okay, my passions. Alabama football, we all know that. So, homelessness. I want to make sure every child has books in their house. My mother was a single mom, so I have a soft spot for single mothers. I was raised by my grandmother, so I understand about the elderly. Fitness is something that I am real passionate about, and I think that everybody should have access to some sort of a park or something like that. So I write down my passions, or I write down my hot spots, and I try to match what I'm passionate about and my hot spots to organizations. And in Etowah County, we have some 699 registered nonprofits. Now, that does include some things such as AMVETS, a couple of things like the AFL-CIO, another union is in there. But you see where I'm going. We have at least 600 viable nonprofits that you can match your actual passion towards that nonprofit. And that way, if you match the two, you won't feel like it's just another job that I have to do. Because the last thing we all need is one more thing that we have to do. And board membership should be something you get to do. And there is a huge difference between I have to do it and I get to do it. It is an honor to serve on a board of directors. It is a big responsibility, but it is an honor. It's not something that everybody gets to do, and it's not something that everybody wants to do. So if you want to and you get to, then it becomes an honor. So I just really want you to think about your passions and your hot spots and matching those to our 600 plus nonprofits here in Etowah County. There's even nonprofits that have to do with youth football. There's nonprofits that have to do with giving away free books. There's nonprofits that have to do with pretty much anything you could name. We can match you with a nonprofit. We also have some really big nonprofits in Etowah County. One of the YMCA. I'll use Leroy as an example right now. You just reformed your board of directors in the last 8-10 months.
Yes.
And doing that is kind of hard because we in Etowah County, although you think we're a large county, we're a small county when it comes to those that want to serve and give up their time. So if it's something that's near and dear to you and you want to serve and you want to be on that board of directors, make it known. Find your passion, find the organization, get to know the organization. And that's what we're kind of moving towards now is how do I find the organizations that match my passions? So y'all all mentioned different organizations. First thing, the one about hunger and the elderly. The first thing that came to my mind was MANA. And that's not just as necessarily that they're hungry, it's that maybe they can't get out to get their meals. But MANA fills a huge, huge, huge void in our community. And they are always needing volunteers and board members and advisory board members and so on and so forth. So matching what you love with what you want to do. So it's not a job. It's I get to do it. And that's so important. Patricia, do you have any questions? I feel like I can't. Okay, as long as she's good. So before we move on, we've talked about passion and we've talked about the 600 plus nonprofits in Etowah County and matching your passion to those. And also the responsibilities of being a board of director member. Any questions with those things yet? Yes.
Is there a list of nonprofits that you can search mission and vision?
So you can do a couple of things. You can go through the United Way list. You can go to United Way of Etowah County, and there will be a list that they fund. And they either fully fund or provide funding to out of a special pot of money. Or you can just Google nonprofits in Etowah County. And I think it's taxexempt.com will pull up to 699 and then you can kind of filter through that. And that was updated on April 21st of this year. So it's very current.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome. Anything else?
There's a great video on YouTube that ties into exactly the same message that you're talking about. It's called Know Your Why.
Know your why. Yes.
Know Your Why.
Yes.
And, really reinforces what you're saying here.
There is a book called Know Your Why by Jeff Henderson, who is a preacher in Atlanta, Georgia. It's one of the best books I've ever read. I've used it pretty much with every board that I serve on right now. Just knowing why you're on that board, knowing your purpose. And I think it was Mark Twain that said there's 2 important days in your life, the day you were born and the day you find out why. And I feel like board membership is part of the why I was put here, is as I'm here to serve people. I am a servant at heart. I don't meet strangers. And I really like to see people grow. And that's part of Know Your Why, is knowing what you like and knowing why you like it. But if y'all didn't hear that, Know Your Why is a YouTube video that Leroy has seen, and I highly recommend it because it's going to be based on the book, Know Your Why. Any other questions? Okay, so if you know why, what your responsibilities are going to be, you know what your passions are, you know the organization's available to you, what do you have to do yourself to be a good member, a good board member? Anyone want to throw out some answers there?
Be positive.
Be positive. That's very important.
Be proactive.
Proactive. That's a good one. I'm going to throw out some strange things for you. You have to be healthy. Because if you're not healthy, like I said, this is just going to be another thing on your list where you say, oh my gosh, I have a board meeting at 7:30 this morning. Check. But if you're a healthy individual and you're a happy individual, then you're going to say, oh my gosh, in the morning at 7:30, I have a board meeting. I'm so excited. I get to see my colleagues on that board, and we're going to discuss X, Y, Z. So you do want to be healthy, happy, and have a good outlook. Any other things you can think of?
Supportive.
Supportive. That's huge. Your role as a board of director is to support the executive director in his or her role. Leroy, have you ever had board members that were not supportive?
Yeah,
How did that make you feel?
lonely.
Lonely. And we never want an executive director who is in charge of serving our entire community to feel lonely, because he's going to feel like he has a weight on his shoulders that there's no way you can remove. There's just no way.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
So I think it's important, and I'm coming more so because of my own experience of where I am at a lot. I think a lot of times board members want to get onto the board and give you all these ideas of things that you need to be doing. Well, not every nonprofit is situated such that they've got all the resources necessary to make those things happen. And, you need board members not that are just going to show up and give you ideas of what needs to take place, but they got to put some rubber behind some of those tires and help push some of those agendas. And also have an open mind and not be singularly focused. So you don't get on the United Way board just because you're interested in whatever your area is, but you also have to understand that it's a vast organization that serves many different areas, and you're going to be involved in all of it.
It is.
So, but I think the biggest thing from my standpoint, because I am the janitor, I am the marketing person, I am the program director, I am everything. So, to have someone to come in and help me with marketing, they need to understand that they really need to help. Not just give me the ideas, but they may have to be involved in helping me gather those stories that we want to get out to the public to say what we're really doing. Because I might not have those skills. So.
It's funny you mentioned two things there, and I want to start with the second one, and then I'm going to go back to the first one. Being able to talk the talk and walk the walk is very important when you become a member of a board. Because here in Etowah County, our resources are very limited. I don't know of a single nonprofit that has enough employees. And I've never, even when I worked in California, I've never known of a nonprofit to have enough employees. So your board of directors is your extension of employees. And a lot of times, the executive director of that nonprofit will create a spreadsheet. And you may say, we don't have anybody with any financial knowledge on this board. We have got to find someone in this community that is passionate about our organization and that will help us with our financial background or with our finances, going forward. Same thing, marketing, advertising, fundraising. I can't say that one enough, fundraising. Every single person is a fundraiser. I'll say that again. Every single person is a fundraiser. That means your duty as a board of director is to not only raise awareness of the organization, but also, when it comes time, help raise funds for that organization. So I can tell you, on the boards that I've served on across the United States, every single board, when we go to nominate new members, we will go through the list and we will say, that person will talk, but they won't work. That person will work, but is not an idea person. That person is great at details, but does not see a vision. That person, and you go through and you try to come up with the best mix of people that you can come up with. So if you're known as an idea person, but you don't implement your ideas, or you're known as a person who will work, but you're not one who comes up with the idea, believe me, that word gets out there. Your reputation will precede you long before you become a board member. We, being the community, will know all about you long before you become a board member. So how you market yourself is very important. And that's what we're going to spend the last half of the presentation on, is marketing yourself to become a good board member. But Leroy, I totally know what you're saying so far as seeing the big picture, but also being able to see in your silo and doing what you're good at. So anyone in here a marketing person? 2, 3 marketing? Anybody an advertising person? Finance? What are some of the other skills that y'all have?
I just have to do it all.
You do it all. You do it all. There we go. There we go.
Everything.
Okay.
Down to delivery. We do it all.
As a small business owner, I do it all. Clean bathrooms all the way up to accounting. So I think we all wear all of the hats, but it's nice if you can divvy out and have a little bit of board oversight in some of the things that isn't your strength. Fundraising in a community our size can be a little bit challenging, and this year has been extremely challenging because all of our fundraisers basically started back at the same exact time, and everybody was trying to get them in a small amount of time before the blackout time for United Way, and before we got, we didn't know if we were going to be shut down again or what. So fundraising can be very daunting. It's a big task that we like to break down. But don't be fooled. If anybody ever comes to you and says, hey, will you join ABC board? And by the way, you don't have to show up and you never have to help with fundraising. Those are 2 big red flags. Because if they don't want you to show up, number 1, you're not doing your fiduciary duty. And number 2, if they don't need you to fundraise, I would have questions about that organization. So, and that's just my personal opinion. Any other questions about what you can do yourself? Does everybody? Yes.
So what's a good number of, I guess, boards or voluntary service to be involved with?
So that really depends on you, your time management, and your current state of employment. Most boards, if they meet once a month, you can pretty much say if you meet once a month, you're going to have 5 to 7 hours of work outside of the board meeting. If you are an executive board and you're meeting twice a month, you're looking at 10 to 15 hours. And that's not always like physically doing something. That can be reading, that can be, looking for grants, that can be across the board different stuff. But a rule of thumb is 5 to 7 hours a week. I mean, a month, for a monthly meeting.
I think the buzzword among our nonprofits right now is partnerships and collaborations.
Yes.
So to have that set of eyes to see those opportunities, and I think that's probably been the greater result of the rebuilding of our board, is that there are these eyes now out there looking for opportunities for the why, or for manna, you know. How can we get more food? How can we get more volunteers? So having sometimes that additional set of eyes to look for opportunities.
I mean, I can tell you, me personally, I spend probably 5, 6, 7 hours a month looking for grants, just for different organizations. Most of the time I'll send, if I find something, I'll either send it to an executive director, or if it's something to do with a small business, I'll send it to DGI, or it depends on where it fits. But I do spend a lot of time just searching out opportunities. But that's one of the things I enjoy doing. Once again, I'm doing what I'm passionate about.
Is that a big contribution to fundraising?
It's a huge contribution to any organization.
Yeah, any grant. If it'll undergird the operations programmatically, that's huge.
I mean, you hear it referred to as soft money, but soft money's good money too. You may only have that soft money for three years, but for 3 years you have extra help and you can implement a new program. And once you get that program implemented, you can always start searching for money to sustain that program. But yeah, that's it. Finding grants is huge, and there is so much so much information on the internet that it's impossible for one person to find every grant opportunity.
Yeah.
When I served on a YMCA board in California, and we had one board member who was retired, and all she did 2 days a week for 8 hours a day was sit in the YMCA and search for grant opportunities. That's all she did. 16 hours a week. That's all she did. I mean, that would be huge, wouldn't it, Leroy?
Move gas.
I know. But everybody has different strengths. I'm not saying you have to do that, but it sure is nice if that's one of your passions and you can do that. Any other questions before we move on? No? So, my favorite thing is, does anybody in here know who Deion Sanders? Y'all ever heard that name? There you go, he has his jersey. Why do you have Deion Sanders' jersey?
He's a hell of a player.
Was he really?
He played 2 different sports.
He played 2 different sports, but was he really good in either one of them? Or did he just market himself? That's always the question about Deion Sanders. Because he split his time between 2 sports, was he really that good in either sport? Or did he just do a great job marketing himself? That jersey was $110. Anybody else have a jersey for somebody? No?
Got my own.
You have your own? Okay, well, good. So you market yourself.
Yeah.
I use Deion Sanders as an example because Deion Sanders played 2 sports in Atlanta. He had nightclubs. He had restaurants. I think at one point he even had a car lot called Neon Deion's. But every time you turn the television on, there was a commercial with Neon Deion Sanders. And it's because Neon Deion Sanders marketed himself as the best athlete that has ever been in the Southeast. Actually, the best athlete in the United States at the time, because he was playing 2 sports and nobody else was doing that. But it was all about Neon Deion Sanders telling his story of how great he is. And I will tell you, if you want to be a board member of any board in Etowah County, you need to be able to tell us how great you are. Because if we don't know about you, and you're not currently serving on a board, and you're not telling us about you, how are we going to know about you? So, have any of you ever done a resume for yourself? Most of the time when you do a resume, you're doing a resume to get a job, right? Have you ever done a resume for yourself, like you're going to hire yourself? It's an activity I challenge you to do, because it is very, very difficult to tell your story. And if you wouldn't hire yourself, why would we hire you? Because most of the time, as a member of several different boards, if I don't know you, I'm going to ask for a resume. And I really don't want to see this resume that you're going to turn into Will for a job opportunity here at the chamber. I want to know what your passions are. I want to know what you've done to serve your community. I want to know if you're involved in your church, and if so, I want to see that on there. I want to know about your college career, about what you did in college. I want to know, like, your heart. Yes, jobs are great. I want to know about your job too. But I want to know your heart. And you have to be able to put that on paper, and that's challenging. And that is one of the only ways that you are going to be invited to a board of directors seat in this county, is to be able to sell yourself and to have that resume that sells you and your heart. Not that sells you for a job, that sells your heart. And there is a huge difference. Somebody can look great on paper for a job, and I would hire them. And then get them in, and they really don't have a heart. They really don't want to help people. That makes it quite challenging. So if you are serious about becoming a board member, I challenge you to create a resume that conveys your passions, that conveys your service, that conveys a servant's heart. In that, don't feel like you're bragging. Tell us what you bring to the table. Do you bring organizational skills to the table? Do you bring marketing skills to the table? Do you bring financial background to the table? Do you bring fundraising to the table? What do you bring to the table? Because if you bring something to the table that Leroy is looking for, you'd be surprised. He may find a seat for you. It may not be on the board of directors immediately. You may have to start and work your way up to that board of directors. But with that resume and knowing what you bring to the table, you're a lot more apt to be asked to join an organization. Get to know the organization that you're most passionate about. Know when the board of directors meets. Know how long they meet. Know if it's a working board. I used to serve on a board, and this is terrible. I did not know this. It was called a give or get board. Anybody ever heard that before? Well, let me tell you, when you serve on a give or get board, you're either going to give a certain amount of money or you're going to get a certain amount of money. So this particular board was a YMCA board, and it was a give or get for $5,000. So what that meant was I was either going to write a check for $5,000 to be on that board of directors, or I was going to go out and raise $5,000 for that YMCA. And they had fundraisers, so I was responsible for selling tickets that amounted, or sponsorships that amounted to $5,000. Luckily, we don't have many give or get boards in Etowah County. I have tried to talk a couple of people into doing a give or get board with a very, very low, like $100. Because if you have 30 directors and it's $100 each, that equates to some money. And $3,000 makes a difference to some organizations. But know what kind of organization you're getting involved with. Know if it's a give or get. Know if it's working. Know if it's monthly, quarterly, twice a year, or yearly. I do serve on one board that meets twice a year. It's in North Alabama. I drive twice a year, and we meet. Get to know that executive director. Because if you know that executive director, that means they know you. It's a two-way street there. And when that executive director gets to know you, start to volunteer. You know, you like to play basketball? Call Leroy up and say, hey, Leroy, I'd like to teach some kids some basketball on the side. Do you have a time where I could just come over and do a 30-minute teaching kids how to dribble? Under promise and over deliver. That's a big one. Always do more than you say you will. Always, always, always. That's how you're going to make that great first impression or second impression, or that's how you're going to be able to be known as somebody who will follow through. Ask. Ask executive directors what they need. Right now, I can tell you, United Way Girlfriend Gala, we need males to serve. I'll leave it at that. We need males to serve. You'll wear a beautiful white shirt and a black bow tie and black pants. We need males to serve. If you're a male and you're wanting to get involved, that is a great way. But if you don't ask an executive director what they need, you'll never know. What do you need, Leroy, besides employees?
Marketing assistants. Need someone other than me to help us tell our story and do it in a way that's relevant with the technologies that exist, because I'm an older guy. I can't keep up. I need someone that has those skills.
I'm right there with you. As a small business owner, that's one of the biggest challenges I face is telling my story to people that are John's age, because I don't necessarily use the same mode of social media that he uses, if he even uses social media. So nonprofits have to tell their story across the board. They have to tell it to people that sit in as the bank chair, all the way down to the person that they serve. And there may be a huge discrepancy between who's being serviced versus who's funding. And you have to be able to tell both sides of that story. And you have to know what message you're sending to both sides of the story.
Yeah, I'd like to change the culture of our community and how they think about the why.
You mean you're not a health club?
No.
That's the last thing on your agenda, isn't it?
Well, it's a part of it,
But it's not priority.
It's not everything, and you know, it's frustrating because we're in a hurting world, and we serve those single moms, and you know, we're assisting with the homeless. I've washed clothes for them and let them take showers at the Y. I feel like the community has no clue what we do, but we all know Chick-fil-A.
We do.
And, you know, it's top of our mind when we think of what we need to eat. Well, we go to Chick-fil-A. I have a girl at my front desk, she eats Chick-fil-A every day.
So do you think that's because Chick-fil-A is the best, or Chick-fil-A is good at telling a story?
I think it's a little bit of both, you know?
I think it goes back to,
So how do I become the Chick-fil-A of this community in doing what I do?
so to answer that, it falls back on you guys who want to be board members. You have to get involved and help him tell his story so that it gets out there to everyone that needs to hear it. Donors, people he's going to serve, people who maybe are on the fence. I don't know. Should I go to the Y? Should I not go to the Y? Should I take my daughter to summer camp at the Y, or should I not? Should I go someplace else? You know, that message is so hard to tell.
And I think, you know, other nonprofit
Yeah.
managers can tell you, and you know this as a business owner, sometimes you're so caught up in the minutia of running the nuts and bolts, the day to day, that having that creative time, you have to make it happen somehow or another.
So there is a big difference in working on your business or on your organization versus in your organization.
Yeah.
So if I spend all of my time working, pouring olive oil or balsamic vinegar, I am not working on my business. I am working in my business. And that is a huge waste of my time. what Leroy is saying here is, if he's having to go out there, and not that you would not enjoy doing this, by no means,
Right.
but if he is babysitting from 3 to 5 and playing dodgeball or kickball, he's not able to sit down and get some of these ideas that he has in his head on paper and figure out how to bring them to fruition. And that's hard to do. I can tell you, as a former nonprofit executive director, I used to set aside 2 hours once a week, 30 minutes, 4 days, to do nothing but brainstorm, which is now brain steering because storming is too violent. But when you brain steer, you turn everything towards a positive instead of just whatever comes out of your mind. But I think it is important to know that as a member of a board of directors, you allow that executive director to have more time to work on the organization. But if you don't have a strong board to oversee that, then it becomes difficult. If you know of any people that want to get involved with board membership, and if it's something that they're passionate about and you share the same passion, you two can go together to volunteer to do an activity, or you have to volunteer to get known. And I would have that resume in hand when I go to volunteer. Hey, Will, I'd like to volunteer at the chamber. How can I do that? The chamber is another great example. If you have a love for small business or making Etowah grow, Etowah County grow, watching Gadsden grow, if you have that love and that passion, I highly recommend talk to Will. We have chamber ambassadors here that when you work with the chamber, you prove yourself. You go above and beyond. I went from chamber ambassador and worked my way up to board member. So sometimes you have to prove yourself. Don't get discouraged, but you go in, you prove yourself, and you work your way up. Some organizations have advisory boards, and they are purely there to give advice. They don't have any fiduciary responsibility. They are purely for advice. I love advisory boards personally. Typically, they don't meet but 4 times a year, and they have very limited responsibilities other than to give ideas and advice. Great way to get your name out there, great way to get involved. You have to get to know the executive director, let that person know why you'd be a good board member, sell yourself to that person, volunteer, underpromise and over deliver. You have to volunteer. Did I say volunteer? You have to volunteer, and you have to raise money. You have to attend fundraisers, which means you're going to come out of pocket some money too. So, all of this is such a huge task, but it's so worth it. It is so, so worth it. So, I guess for me, the biggest takeaway that I want you to take away from here, and this is just from my perspective as someone who has served on multiple boards across the United States, I want you to know that you have to market yourself. And you have to be able to do that. Nobody can do that for you. And if you have a strong interest in boards, match your passion to a board and then go after it. And I don't mean just, hey, this is Tina. I read about you. You have anything I can come and do? That will get you nowhere. It will get you somewhere. They're probably going to say, yeah, we have some volunteers that come in and read to kids at 2 o'clock. Come on over. But is that what you really wanted to do? No, it's not. I'd much rather you call up and say, hey, this is Tina King. I have a lot of background in grant writing and marketing. I would love to help your organization. Can we sit down and talk? And Leroy's going to say, when can you be here? Ruth would say, I'll meet you at the door. What do you want to go to lunch? I'll buy your lunch. You have to sell yourself. You have to make the first move and sell yourself. It's like I said from the beginning, Etowah County is kind of small. So a person that serves on one board probably serves on 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 boards. Those people are getting bored, B-O-R-E-D, on boards. And sooner or later, we're all going to die off. And so we need some of you young people to step up and become board members. All right, I have 8 minutes left. Questions, comments, thoughts. How many of you are building a board right now? I know Leroy just finished building a board. Anybody else have a?
We're up for new board members, we have some rolling off.
You're up for, how, do you know how many?
2 I know of for
Okay.
certain.
Okay.
They're both officers as well.
Tina, I've kind of come to the conclusion that there really is no end. I think you're always looking. If they're the right fit, you know, bring them on.
I agree with that. Some boards are not as open, in that they let members just roll on at any time. Some members are what we call closed boards, where they only allow members to come on in January or whatever. I like the concept of a rolling board, because if you have people that are rolling off and new people that are rolling on, you're not losing all of your experience at one time. I love that. So I'm one, though, that I think you need to know the history of an organization in order for you to know where it's going to go. If you don't know where it's been, you sure can't tell me where it's going to go. That's just, when I went on the YMCA board in California, I had no idea the history of that organization. And all I knew, it was a gorgeous, beautiful building, and they had lots and lots of money, and but I didn't know that they had been donated a huge sum of money to build the organization, and the reason why. And once you learn that, you're like, wow. So I highly recommend getting to know the history. Any other questions or comments? Anybody ready to jump on a board? Yes, no, maybe? Maybe? Do you have some in your mind, some that you're thinking about?
Not exactly. I would like to look at the list of nonprofits in Etowah County. I know me, I have a passion for health and wellness. So, so that would be, along the lines of what I would be looking into.
Well, there's a young man sitting in this room you might want to have a conversation with at some point. Health and wellness is right in his wheelhouse.
Absolutely.
We support health and wellness too.
They do.
Literally.
They do.
We try to keep them home and independent.
That's true. Have you thought through anybody you might be interested in?
Not yet.
Okay. Anybody else? I really do recommend going through and looking at United Way's list that they fund, especially when you think about your financial responsibility of going onto a board. Those people are held to some higher standards, and there's also some organizations here that are not funded by United Way that are also held to higher standards. I recommend making sure you know what standards those boards are held to and that organization's held to. Typically, if they've had funding through the Community Foundation of Northeast Alabama, they're held to a lot higher standard. United Way, if they receive federal funding, most of them you can pretty much feel a little more at ease. Yes.
It might be important to know if they carry directors and officers insurance.
Yes.
That'll say a lot right there.
That is true. Insurance is very important, and I didn't even mention the directors and officers insurance. I don't know if I've ever served on a board that doesn't have some sort of insurance policy in place. Because you never know in today's world. Any other questions or comments? Did you say you just moved here from Atlanta?
Yeah,
Okay.
a week ago.
A week ago. Okay.
Still there, but we got an apartment just like half a mile from here.
Okay.
Yeah, so pretty exciting. No, I mean, I love what you're saying there, and the vision, the mission, the passion, and it's great things, and definitely have passion to help the community, because I see the community like a company. It's like you gotta have the great people, great product, great service, and it will grow. So.
That's true. And, there's not only board membership, but there's other ways to get involved in our community as well. You have, even though they're considered nonprofits, Kiwanis, you have Rotary, you have the Gadsden Runners Club, you have, there's a ton of organizations that you can just get out there to meet people that are also young professionals or people that just want to make a difference.
Gadsden's ready for that.
I agree.
It's time.
Any other questions? Well, I'm going to turn it back over to Will. I appreciate you having me today, and I hope you've learned something. If I can help you match your passion to an organization, feel free to reach out to me. I'll give everybody my email is my name backwards, Kingtena, KINGTENA @hotmail.com, or you can call me at King's Olive Oil Company. I would help you to further explore your passions and determine what organizations you would best fit with.